Okay, so we're recording, and I'm with Lisa Young. Lisa is you're part of the Slack group, and you came to one of our. I think we met at a mini conference, right?
Yes, your first one.
That's right. That's right. Talk to everybody a little bit about where you are within your writing journey.
Sure, yes. So I started with NaNoWriMo 2019, and that's National Novel Writing Month. And I'm writing a science fiction series.
Did you finish?
No.
Funny. I've attempted 4 times. I've only finished once, so I totally get it.
Okay. No, I did finish the Nano Challenge.
Oh, nice! Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. So,
sorry. Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead. I apologize.
It's fine. So I wrote the first 2.5 books, and then I went back to write the first one again, and now I'm writing the first one for the 3rd time. And hopefully this is maybe the last major overhaul of the story.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got a full draft, so we're editing today. Awesome. So we'll talk about, we'll focus everything toward editing and what happens when you edit. So give us a little insight. Where does this scene fall in the book?
So this scene takes place 9 years before book 1.
Okay.
This was actually one of the Slack group's writing prompts that prompted me to write this scene.
What
And I'm exploring 2 very important characters.
Okay.
One of them is a, what do you call it? A protagonist ally?
Yeah.
Antagonist ally.
Okay. Nice. Which one's the antagonist?
That would be the Emil Brayson.
Okay. Right. That surprises me based on this piece. You did good. And Leo's the protagonist?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So let's talk just for a second about the beats of the scene, because the scene's really strong. You've got some really great beats to it, but it needs a little work on the emotional flow to because you're dealing with some heavy emotions, and we want to build them and set them up in a way that's going to empower the reader to feel them along with your characters. So let me ask, who do you want in this short story? Who do you want the characters to connect with?
Do you mean which character I want the readers to more identify with?
I mean, so you're going to take the readers through this kind of journey. And we've got Emil on the journey, and we've got Leo at the end of the journey, and they both have some pretty changing emotions, right? They're both moving through the piece. If the reader is going to experience the emotions of one or the other, which one's most important to you?
Emil.
Okay. All right, awesome. So let's just talk about the beats of the story for a second and lay it out so that we can get into kind of where we need to build out and where we can just edit. So when I'm editing, excuse me, when I'm editing a piece like this, it's interesting because I just found a very similar problem. Oh, I didn't share my screen yet. I just found sorry, I'm looking over and I'm like, yeah, we're talking about the piece, but I didn't share my screen. There we go. So can you see the piece now? Great. So when I'm editing a book that I wrote, taking a second pass at it, and it's an emotional book, and I'm finding I have the same problem that this short story is having, which is there's some really heavy emotions and I'm rushing into them. And because I'm rushing into them, they feel like a surprise to the reader. But they're not the kind of emotions that we want to feel like a surprise. They're the kind of emotions that we want to sit in. There's some emotions you want to be surprised by, like horror and, excitement when it comes to action and those kinds of things. We want to be surprised, but this is dealing with some grief and feelings of injustice and feelings of pain, and those are emotions we want our reader to sit with. So we need to build them up so that we can feel them and then live with them. Now, this is a prequel to the book. Do you expect readers to read this before or after they read your book?
I think it could be either. I think I might be able to use some version of this as like a short story and an anthology that might lead readers into the series.
I could see that. I could totally see that. The reason I ask is because, well, let's talk through the beats and then we'll get back to why I ask. So we have Emil in this, we open up with him in this kind of sniper position, taking breaths between like squeezing the trigger and hitting his target. That's kind of beat one, takes up page one. And then page two, we get into Emil realizing that it was a simulation. Like we realized it was a training simulation. And he has this conversation with Martinez, which is a voice from beyond. Does Martinez come back in the book?
No.
Okay. So he then goes to find his mentor, Leo, and he kind of wanders the hallway looking for Leo. Finally, he finds Leo at his room, and he wants to brag to Leo about what he did, but he sees that Leo has a knife. And the implication of the knife is that Leo is being shamed. Now, did the knife imply suicide?
No, it wasn't meant to. It's
Okay.
not.
That's where my head went.
Oh, right.
So we met because he opens up the door and there's a knife on a tray. And I'm like, oh, that dude's gonna kill himself.
I was thinking more because so like now Emil has to buzz cut his hair, but he's looking forward to, now that he's earned this honor, he can stop doing that and grow his hair and have a top knot like a real adult male. So Leo is going to have to shave his head with the dagger.
Okay. Gotcha. All right, that helps. Did that conversation happen in here or did I just miss it?
No, it was there. I just had little hints in there, but I didn't see what it was.
Okay. Because it's possible I just missed it. So before I was going to say we need to put that conversation in this piece, then, but yeah, especially if you expect it to stand alone. Because the knife on the tray and the conversations around honor made me think that Leo was about to kill himself when Emil walked up to him in like a, dishonored samurai kind of way. So I don't think the emotional tone changes because we're still dealing with honor and disgrace and all of that. So the problems with the emotional flow that I saw is that first, we don't connect to Leo and tell, like, mostly because we don't really meet him until the end of the story. So, and he kind of comes out of nowhere. And so that this thing is happening to him didn't really hit me, if that makes sense. So we need to build up Leo a little bit so that we can feel the pain of what's happening. The second thing is we need to solidify Emil's voice. Because part of the reason I think we're not connecting to Leo is because we're following Emil through the story, and his voice has a big change in the middle of page 2. He goes from being quiet and like short sentences and very kind of disciplined and focused to the middle of page 2. He starts having these kind of childlike conversations with his gut. So we just need to pick a side. And I think if we can fix those two things and then slow down a little bit, we can fix the emotional flow. Because if we were going to like sketch this out, of course, I didn't get anything ready to sketch anything out. But if we were going to sketch this out and we had our axis, right, we start high with that like excitement and drama. And then we go a little bit higher when he completes the task. We realize it's a simulation. And then he's kind of looking for Leo, and then we crash at the end when he finds Leo and discovers that his mentor's been disgraced, right? And we have this like kind of begging, pleading scene. So in order to get that crash, we really need to feel and love the pain of losing Leo. So we got to build Leo up more at the beginning, and then we have to like, that way we'll feel the crash at the end. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
And I think after we're done talking, we're going to see that you actually have two separate scenes here, because you got to build them both out. So right now, this is at 1,800 words or so. I think you're going to get this up by the time you're done with it. I would expect this is at like 4,000.
Okay.
Because I think you're at least going to have to double it to really hit the emotional tones.
Okay.
Okay. So does all of that make sense?
It does.
Okay. So let's get into it. And let's first start. Well, let me ask you, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with Emil's voice? Do you want to start with the opening? What do you want to start with?
Yes. Well,
you can't say yes. Either. Okay.
So you emailed me your comments this morning, so I did have some time to think about this and work on it.
Nice.
And so I did go back through like the first part of this, and I made Emil's voice be more mature, but I also made him talking to his rifle from the beginning.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Yeah. So that was in the original copy you sent me. I'm explaining this not for you. I think that's a great change. I'm explaining this for people who might listen. So in the original copy, we have this almost 9 paragraphs of him stalking his prey alone on a rooftop. And it's a weird, this is so tough because it's realistic, right? Like he's alone. Who's he going to be talking to?
Yeah.
And he's just there breathing and watching and waiting and breathing and watching and waiting. So we have this very intense, slow open building to this like bodyguard stepping out and then watching the bodyguard and then his target stepping out and then pulling the trigger. And so the problem with it is that like without the character speaking, we don't connect to what's going on. We don't connect to him emotionally, even though your descriptions are really great, right? Like his breath caught slightly as he saw his target vehicle drive into sight. Slowly, he shifted his head until he was looking through the scope of the long-range sniper rifle resting on the stand. He deepened his breath, feeling like that's a great paragraph, right? Like it's really strong. I'm into it, but I'm not emotionally connected to the character because I haven't heard his voice yet. And so there's something about a character becoming human when we hear them. So we got to hear him. So you added him talking to his rifle up here. Nice. How does that work? How does it sound? Do you like it better?
I do. I like it a lot better. Do you want me to read like the first 3 lines?
Did you email it to me?
I did.
I'll just open it up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fun. It's rare that I actually get to see people's edits after they talk to me. Usually they wait to talk to me before they show me. So this is awesome. So let's see.
So that's not it.
That's not it.
Nope.
Dang it.
I emailed it to you maybe about an
Okay.
hour.
Oh, okay. So it's a new email.
Yep, new week.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry, people love it when I do this, when I like click things in the podcast. Like this is the best. We get to listen to Jeff click stuff. Did I open the same thing again?
No, that's the same thing.
Dang it. All right. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pause the recording and find it. Hold on.
Okay, sure.
Okay, now after 5 minutes of me scrolling and clicking, we finally have the right document up. Okay, so yeah, I just want to compare the openings. So the original opening, 19-year-old Emil Branson ignored the ant crawling up the side of his face. It was just one of the latest in a long succession of small critters that had checked him out over the past 36 hours. So that was the original. And now the second one is, Emil whispered, "How much longer?" See, I'm already caught, right? Like you've already hooked me. I like it. Diana didn't answer. She never did. But Emil had no trouble imagining her responses. An hour, I'd say. An hour, you say? I don't think so. 10 minutes, maybe less. Emil kept his breathing. And now we're back into the breathing slow. Oh, that's great. And you can just see how much more this connects, how much less of the kind of heavy paragraph it is, and the more engaging of him talking to his weapon. And I love that you've continued to keep, so this is something really hard to do with an action scene, which is to keep the voice, to keep the action and put the voice in over top of it. You've done a really good job with it. I really like it. Nice work. That's cool. So you went with a more mature Emil. Okay, so describe to me Emil's voice.
Okay, so Emil is he's 19-year-old. He is very good at what he does. He's been training since he was 8 years old to be like this uber soldier. So he's very confident. He's also the Guardian Master's protege. So he's enjoys some protection from him, because when he started, he was bullied by the older boys. He was the youngest one by far and the smallest. Leo was just an instructor at the time. So he stepped in and kind of got the other boys to back off. So that's how their relationship started.
Okay.
So he's pretty, so he's very disciplined. He is disciplined. He works hard. He has to, because he has to keep, he's earning back his family's honor.
Okay.
But at the same point, Leo has kind of like a quirky sense of humor, and Emil has taken on some of those characteristics. So that's why he talks to the gun, for instance, as if it's a real, entity.
Okay, so he's got a little bit of quirk to him.
Yeah.
He'd need to talk to and on him. I was actually going to say, like, okay, you're building a very disciplined character, and like adding that disciplined character, giving him a like imaginary friend to talk to, especially in the way that he's talking to it. So there's kind of two ways you could go with that. Let me put the new one back up. A disciplined character is gonna express his angst and like goals and objectives to his imaginary gun. Well, his gun, but to his imaginary friend, the gun. But he wouldn't answer for the gun. That's where it gets quirky. Where he's like, an hour, you say, right? Like, so I like it. We just need to make sure that you want that kind of quirk with Emil, where he's kind of got that like, it's I can see him as a villain because he's kind of on the edge there a little bit. Yeah. He's got that weird like, yeah, this kid would probably be picked on, and it's gonna push him over the side. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. He's not the high school football quarterback who's gonna like dominate everybody with his discipline and intensity, even if he is really skilled. Yeah. So I really like what you did here. This is a really nice change up. And I like the nice change up in his voice. So in page 2, speaking of his voice, in the old one, he spoke in the first one in these kind of shortened sentences, like you in the original piece, like you have him speaking in the new piece, where, so I would say that his words are pretty simple. They're educated, but he's using kind of basic words, which leads him to be that 19 years old. So that's really nice. And then he talks about what's happening at the moment. So his topics are like present, like what's going on at the moment. Mm-hmm. So if you're building the chart, which you sent me in the Excel sheet, you've got the background filled out, which is awesome. So if we're building the chart here, and you've got the like start of his personality, for words, we want that like language and topic. So I just remind myself as I'm putting in here, like simple words. And then the topics are, he's talking about what's happening, and he's very open to saying what he feels. Right. And that works through the whole piece. And again, all of that goes into that like confident and cocky and secure, but a little quirky 19-year-old voice. Like that matches. When we talk about his cadence, the cadence you had built for him, that was one of the things I wanted to note the problem of in the first piece. In this first half, his cadence is one sentence, maybe two at a time, right? He's not having big paragraphs. So originally he wrote, yes, wait until Leo hears. And I'm just going to read his words. Mm-hmm. That's Guardian Master Rozak to you, Martinez. Why are you here? Waiting for you to fail. It's not stupid. You're just jealous. You won't ever be asked to take it. As if I dedicate my life to the Guardians. Good thing you're not holding your breath because you'd never be asked to. Come on, I'll show you. Right. So he's got that like confident, cocky topic, but he's only using like a couple sentences at most at a time. Right. He's not pontificating in paragraphs. So his cadence is like a few sentences, a lot of declarations, and a lot of periods, right? Like he doesn't ask any real questions. The only question he asks, this "why are you here," is more disdain filled than it is. He doesn't actually care why the guy's here, right? Like so, it's that he's got that like edge to him, which is nice. And then we get to the middle, and you originally wrote this. Come on, Diana. Come on, Diana. That's just me unable to read. You spelled it perfectly. Come on, Diana. Let's go over and tell Leo we passed the trial. We'll start training to be a real blade. Now, I can't stop buzzing my head every week. Oh, I can stop buzzing my head every week. Just imagine one day soon we'll be walking through the side corridors side by side with Leo wearing a real top knot, and everyone will treat us with respect. Right. So now we've got this like, I'm 4 sentences in. Yes. Right. Like, and you can feel the like change in his cadence.
Yeah.
Did you fix that in the new one?
Yeah, I don't have any big paragraphs like that for him.
Nice. Yeah. Way to go. I'm so impressed.
Thank you. That's
awesome. What did you say?
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, of course. Come on in, I'll show you. Okay, so this is still the, no, I went too far. Sorry, I gotta back up. Oh no, wait, I only have part of it. I only have 782 words.
Yep, that's all the farther I got tonight.
Okay, that's fine. So I'll stop playing with that. Okay, so I love that you broke it up, but just to complete his voice, right? When we're talking about, so we've talked about the words being simple and direct, right? Like, and the topics, he's going to talk about how he's feeling. He's actually going to say out loud how he's feeling. We've talked about and the cadence, right? 2 to 3 sentences at a time, periods, a lot of declarations. Questions are to make a point, not to actually gather information, right? Like, are to like say something. That's going to play into Leo in a minute at the bottom, because when we get that sad moment where he's talking to Leo about not slitting his wrists like Jeff thought, but cutting his top knot, when we get down there, he's asking questions like, why are you punishing yourself for that? Why are you doing this? Right? Like, he doesn't actually need an answer to this. He's not seeking information. He's using questions to express emotion. Yeah. So definitely a cool part of his cadence that you've built in here. And then his pacing is fascinating because he fills silence. And was that intentional?
Well, I felt like I had to do that because he needed some conversation.
He's got to talk to somebody. Yeah. But it's interesting that he, like, even after he's done shooting and the simulation ends, he speaks first. Before he even knows Martinez is there, right? Like, so he's filling this silence with his own voice. It's gonna make his character really unique, which is nice. So those kind of weird quirks. Now, I don't know that I'd put this in the chart, but have you seen Frozen with Sven?
No, actually I haven't.
Okay, so in the Disney, I know my children are young, so I see all the cartoons. In the Disney TV show movie Frozen, well, and my 6-year-old, his like Frozen is like his favorite movie of all time. So I've seen both of them like 15 times, which no one should have to do. So in the TV show Frozen, the movie Frozen, there's a character who has a pet moose, and he's constantly talking to the moose and then answering for the moose, much like Emil is answering here. And it is charming and quirky at the same time. And if you're taking Emil to be a villain, I could also see it become sinister. Because it can feel, if it goes a little bit further, it'll feel unhinged, right? Like right now, it's cute. But if it goes a little bit further, and he's asking the gun how to kill it, like, who should we kill tonight, Diana? Now you've verged into like the villain from The Walking Dead who talks to his baseball bat, right? Like now we're in who's playing eeny, meeny, miny, mo with people's heads, right? Like still talking to Lucille, his baseball bat, but just it's now more sinister and dark. So you've got a great like setup for Emil as a character here with his voice, which is really nice. Okay, so we talked about changing the opening, and you already changed it and you rocked it. We talked about Emil's cadence and where to go. We talked about connecting Emil's voice early, which you already, I'm still a little stunned that you fixed that before you got on the call with me. That's awesome. So let's talk about slowing down for emotional change. So hard. It's hard. Why is it hard?
Well, I guess because of the emotions, it's hard to linger. It's hard to know how to build it up without making it too over the top and dramatic.
Okay. So you're nervous about like taking it too far. That's fair. That's super fair. How does it, when you write a heavy scene like this, do you connect to it personally, or is that something you're having to come back and look at? There's no right answer. Like writers are just different. How do you feel about it?
Well, I definitely try to put myself in the place of the characters. I try to feel what they're feeling.
Yeah. You ever make yourself cry when you write?
Cry? I definitely, so my mood definitely changes sometimes for hours after.
Nice. Okay. So so you're feeling the scene. Some writers don't. Some of us just write through, and then we get to the end and we're like, okay, I like it's more technical. It's like, okay, I need them to be sad. So now I have to make this more sad. Some of them, like it sounds like you and me, we actually kind of live the scene.
Yeah.
And so when you write a heavy scene, I tend to rush it because I don't like feeling that. I don't like writing it and feeling what I'm feeling. So my first draft is always too fast. I always have to come back and slow it down. And it sucks because it makes writing fast really hard because like I walk away from scenes a lot, especially if I'm writing something heavy. I just keep walking away because I don't want to feel what I'm feeling. It feels like resistance, like the Stephen Pressfield resistance of like, don't cut, like walk away, or like writer's block. Yeah. If you use the terms of writer's block instead of resistance. But for me, all writer's block is avoiding the emotion that I don't want to deal with in the piece itself. So I would recommend, as you're editing and as you're writing, if you write a piece like this and you find yourself feeling the emotions, mark it somehow, because you're going to have to come back to it and slow it down because you're rushing through it. So just learning our quirks and like how to set ourselves up for success will save you time in the long run. So just mark it, right? I started writing a book. I'm actually rewriting a book, but I started rewriting my first novel last November, and I was doing really great until May. And then I realized that about 2/3 of the way through the book, I have to add a sexual assault. And one of the protagonists needs to experience that assault. And I walked away from the book and haven't touched it. I touched it again this week for the first time. But I started back at the beginning. So I have like 40 chapters to edit before I get to the sexual assault. But I'm totally avoiding writing that page because I don't want to deal with those emotions. So just knowing that about yourself as a writer will help you work through your quirks and help you work through like your weird, like all of us have those weird, like, why did I stop writing this thing? Or like, why am I rushing this scene? And it does help me to like mark it. I keep a spreadsheet with all the scenes I've written for a story, and I'll just mark in the spreadsheet like, hey, like this one's a mess. So just a thought. Yeah, just a thought for editing. So let's talk about how to slow it down. A lot of times I know I'm rushing a scene when characters are saying more than one or two things in one utterance, especially if they're a character like Emil that doesn't do that. then I know I'm like cranking through a scene. So first I'll feel it in my gut when I read it or I write it. I'm like, oh, that's uncomfortable. And then I'll start to like find that I'm like pushing through it to get to the next thing. And again, I may not fix it on my first draft, but on my second or third, I got to come back and fix it. So here we've got this engagement with Martinez. And this is the first place where I felt like, oh, you're rushing, like you're pushing through this. I didn't know when I first read it that the real emotional tinge is coming at the end with Leo, right? So, but we can set that up here by just slowing them down and giving them a few more exchanges. So for example, then the world vanished, leaving email lying on the floor surrounded by the white walls. Yes, wait till Leo hears. Emil pumped his fist as the simulation vanished. He started to sit up gingerly as his body had been laying stiff for hours. Leo won't care. The disembodied voice came. So here we get Martinez saying Leo won't care. So we can, and Leo's going to get mad about that. So we can start slowing it down right away, right? Like, yes, Emil pumped his fist as the simulation vanished. Like, have the voice from beyond introduce it here. Have him say something kind of snarky, like lucky shot, or like, you know, yeah, anybody could do, like, you know, that was the easy level, right? Like, and then have him respond with a sentence and then say, wait till Leo hears. And then have him say, Leo won't care, right? Like, and now we're starting to feel that emotional turn from him being in this like warrior state where he's talking to his gun and getting the job done to becoming frustrated with Martinez. Because that's that emotional flip here we need to feel, is Leo celebrating to Leo frustrated. And we just want to slow it down and start to feel that frustration from, not Leo, Emil, from Emil's like warrior self to his frustrated self. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then we can keep pulling it down here. Like, this is a good one. Like, you know, what are you even doing here? Waiting for your stupid test. Waiting for you to fail your stupid test again. Emil smirked. You're just jealous you won't ever be asked to take it, as if I want to dedicate my life to the Guardian. This might be a great place to bring in a note about the top knot, right? You wish you had a Guardian top knot.
Oh, yeah.
You wish you didn't have to shave your head, right? Like, and start bringing that in. You drop it in the big paragraph here that Emil says, which you've rewritten, but starting to pull it in early, right? Like to say like, oh, what I'm going for is the top knot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pulling out this frustration and slowing it down a little bit will make us feel it. Now we have another shift in the tone of the story when he leaves Martinez. He says, we'll pick this up later. And he swings and he leaves. Now, and again, you're going to fix this voice. The voice here comes off giddy, and you're, because he's like dropping, he's talking so much.
Right.
But you're going to slow that down. But he has this moment where he's like looking through the corridors of the Citadel, searching for Leo. Why is he alone in the Citadel?
So everybody's been called to this meeting, the assembly, and so he's heading to Leo's office because he knows Leo's going to be preparing for this big meeting.
Yeah.
And usually there are people, you know, usually people don't, they're not late to the meeting, but they aren't necessarily early.
Okay.
So it's weird that he's going through the hallways and they're empty, because usually there would be people strolling along heading towards the amphitheater.
Okay. Is there the reason I'm asking this is because him wandering through the open halls, and this may just be my preference. This may not be something you actually need to fix. It felt very ghost-like to me. Like, you know, I grew up as a kid in like the rapture crazy of like evangelical churches, and it felt like, oh, everybody's been raptured, they're all gone. So like, I didn't get the feel that like, oh, everybody's just gone to this meeting early.
I did want to kind of convey something ominous.
Okay. So maybe take him, instead of having him wander in the halls, I'm just going to give you some other options.
Okay.
Because I think it is ominous, but it's ominous in like and again, short stories are tough because you don't have the full like breadth of the novel to build the world. So you got to build the world's got to be quick and dirty. Does that make sense? And in a fantasy sci-fi, worlds are not quick and dirty. So there's a weird tension you've got to walk. Maybe have him actually look in on the theater and see that it's full.
Okay.
And wonder why it's full. And then go to find Leo. Like look in on the theater, see that it's full, scan the stage, see that Leo's not on the stage, and then go try to find him. That can still give the like, oh, something bad is happening without the like, we're wandering around on a ghost ship.
Sure.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Again, that may just be I can't say that that's something that every reader would pick up on. That may just be my preference. Every editor brings their own preference to the work. So somebody else might read that and be like, oh no, that was great. It's super familiar. So, author's choice. Go for it. Pick whichever way you want to go. So now let's get to the top knot. So first, let's talk about what I love that you're doing. Oh no, wait, there's something else I wanted to talk about. So up here when we're going back to his conversation with Martinez, I want you to add because you've got a good voice in Martinez, you've got a good voice in Emil, and you're in a two-person conversation, right? Like where they're just two of them are going back and forth. You don't need dialogue tags, right? And you've written it really well, where like we don't need dialogue tags. What I want a little bit more of is a little bit more body language, not to recognize who's talking, but to help me understand how some lines are being said. So this one, you really nailed it. Emil smirked. You're just jealous. You won't ever be asked to take it. So the smirk tells me that like he's cocky and a little proud of himself, and it's kind of telling off Martinez a little bit, as if I wanted to dedicate my life to the gardens. You can't give Martinez body language because he's outside the room, but you can, again, come on in and I'll show you. Emil hid his surprise that Martinez was overtly showing his hostility after years of subtle jabs and never delivered when Leo was around. So come on in and I'll show you can be a playful challenge or an angry challenge. Is Emil a hothead? He's talking to his rifle. I don't know. He might be crazy boy. Like, how is he saying it? So I just need that piece of body language here to tell me, like, I get that he's hiding his surprise, but what's he hiding it underneath?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And just like dropping. So as we're slowing down this piece where Emil's getting frustrated, making sure that the small emotional turns in the piece are being communicated with that body language to let us know what's going on. Does that make sense?
It does. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Here's another one here. Find Martinez. We'll pick this up later. He swung his rifle across his shoulder, tucking it behind and strode out the door of the empty corridor. Something like a sigh here up at the front, or something like a laugh to himself, just to demonstrate, like, I don't care, right? Like, and the walking out the door does a good job of like him ending it. But at this point, like, is he angry? Is he blowing it off? Is he like, pissed at Martinez? Like, what's happening here that tells me? Now, I will say, usually when a character is being bullied, because you wanted to set up that Emil is being bullied.
He was 11
He's not
years
anymore. Okay.
ago. This was
Never
when he
mind.
first came. Yeah.
Gotcha. So now he's like got it behind him, and
Now he can take care of himself.
gotcha. Okay. That's what's communicated here. I felt like as I was reading, it's like, oh, he doesn't care what Martinez thinks. Okay, so let's jump to the end and talk about slowing down in this big dramatic scene with Leo.
Yes.
So you've got this section here. Here we go. Sorry, I was looking where to start. So this is, talk to me about Leo's voice before I tell you what I like about Leo's voice. Tell me what you're going for so we can talk about how it works.
Yeah, so Leo, he so basically he follows the code of honor, and he's the head of this guild, this, the Guardians.
Yeah.
But he's like a natural teacher and a natural protector, and so he will put people first above the code of honor. That's
Okay.
what led to his disgrace.
Okay. Is he highly disciplined?
He is disciplined, and it's based on who he's around. So he is, he can be very, straight-laced, by the book, when he needs to be. But when he's in private, when he's with his friends or with Emil, his like protege / adopted son almost, then he's got this, quirky sense of humor, and he's much more relaxed and,
Okay. Do we see them together often in your book?
They will be, yeah. Emil shows up towards the beginning of book 1, and Leo shows up at the beginning of book 2, and then they'll be together.
They'll be together.
The rest of the
So part of what I like about what you're doing with Leo's voice is it's more formal than Emil, which gives him a little more gravitas.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Okay.
So his words are a little more formal. He's using phrases like lapse of judgment, disaster in motion, right? Like we've got these phrases in here that make him sound a little more just weighty. Well done, Emil. He uses Emil's name a lot. And using someone's name tends to emphasize the point and can really add to that formality. So names are something that we tend to leave out of conversation. But, if I said, Lisa, this is a really good piece. I really like, Lisa, how you did this thing, right? Like you can just start to feel the like formality of what I'm saying creep in because I'm using your name all the time. So you've got him doing that. I would put that on his chart. I'd say like in the word section, I'd be like, uses people's names because it adds that and uses these big phrases to describe complex things. That's what I'd put in his words. His body language, he seemed very stiff in here. So yeah, I would keep that body language, that kind of like stoic, general-esque body language. And his cadence matches Emil's, which is part of the reason I ask why, like, will they talk to each other a lot? Because they have a nice complementing cadence and that neither of them are saying too much at one time, right? Like they're both like 1 to 2 sentences each, which makes the conversation between them, even though it's heavy, it makes it feel a little bit snappy. Leo, though, unlike Emil, I got the feeling from reading, and again, it was just 500 words of Leo, but I got the feeling that Leo's pacing is he's going to wait for other people to talk. He won't have a problem speaking last, but unless he's playing like a commanding role and giving orders, he's going to hold off and see what other people say first. And again, that's going to be a really nice contrast with Emil if you put them in more conversations together, because Emil will launch into things while Leo waits for him to spin a little bit, which will be a nice thing. So I think I actually really liked Leo's voice. I think you did a really good job with it. It was clear when I got to this part in the piece, I was like, oh, now we're in a groove. Right, like Emil up front was a little rough. Emil here talking to Leo, I was like, yeah, this is strong dialogue. So great job with this. I'm also seeing that I wouldn't call it quirky in this piece, but that like loving mentor side of Leo. And part of what's happening and what you're doing to create that is you're centering Leo's topics on how Emil feels and what's going on with Emil, right? Like, so he makes comments like, I'm proud of you, why the formal greeting, right? Like he's even in when they get into this like hard thing, Leo grasps Emil's shoulder, right? Like that compassionate caring. He's concerned that Emil knows, Emil, you've done nothing wrong. This has nothing to do with you, right? Like that concern of like, hey, I want to make sure you're okay, really conveys his like the mentor side of his personality that you built out, which I think is really great. So at the same time, we got to slow it down.
Okay.
Because this is a heavy moment, right? So he says, well done, you should be proud of himself. And then we've got this paragraph, 2 paragraphs here. Well, let me back up a little bit more and build into it. Because Lisa, you know what I'm talking about, but everybody else doesn't. So Emil's like run up to him and is going to give him his like, look what I did. Emil smiled, relieved they've moved on to a happier topic. Yes, sir, we took out the target. I stalked out the final transfer location, showing up early because his voice trailed off when Leo patted him on the shoulder. Well done, Emil. You should be proud of yourself. Leo stepped past him and went into his office, flicking on the light. Emil frowned. He'd expected the scenario play by play, but Leo seemed distracted. If the assembly was to announce his promotion, wouldn't he be showing interest? I need Emil to speak here.
Okay.
I need Leo to respond. Instead of jumping into the next paragraph, Emil stepped into the office and froze, right? Because this is like I said at the beginning, we have sharp builds, right? Like we'll have like sharp throws into action where we want the emotional change, we want the emotional tone to change right away. And then we have sharp drops where we'll have like a moment of terror where somebody's scared and we want the floor to feel like it fell out from under the reader. But this isn't that. This is sorrow. And sorrow comes on us like a wave. You can see it coming and then it crashes over you and it stays on top of you for too long. For so long it makes you like hurt a little bit. And so that's what we want. We want Emil to see that wave coming, right? Like, so we need to slow it down, drop another line in here, right? Where Emil's going to ask him or is going to like note something about how great the shot was. And Leo again is going to like push him off. Then Emil can notice the knife, right? On the tray was a matching ornate dagger. I might put in here one used only for cutting a top knot. So that you don't get people like me like, oh no, he's gonna kill himself. So because if you see a gun, somebody has to get shot. If you see a dagger, somebody's got to get stabbed. So you got to tell me what the dagger's for. And then Emil, in a soft voice, as if the dagger were a wild animal that could attack. What's that doing here? That's great, right? Like that line is great. But you follow it with more prose. And so we lose the impact, right? Like let that line just land on us. Emil kept his voice soft and level, as if the dagger were a wild animal that could attack. What is that doing here? And then let Leo respond. This is the way it's got to be. Then you can give me Emil recognized the dagger from the tray where it was mounted on the wall. He'd only seen them take it down for one disturbing but memorable occasion. And maybe here's where you put it. Like that's what they used to cut a top knot. And then Leo can say like, something like, yeah, this is what we used to cut a top knot, right? Like that recognition of it, but starting to build, using their voices to build that tension. And then he can say like, why do you have that dagger? Like, why is it off the wall? And now we can get into, Emil, I'm sorry, I didn't want you to find out this way. And now Emil's heart can start to thump because he's having that recognition. But can you feel how, like, if we slow it down, if we let this amazing line that you wrote, Emil kept his voice soft. I'm going to read it again because it's so good. Emil kept his voice soft and level as if the dagger were a wild animal that could attack. What's that doing here? Right? If we let that stand at the end of the paragraph, it just pops. And then make Leo respond. But Leo, you're doing a really great thing with Leo here that is super realistic, where Leo's actually talking around what's happening.
Yeah.
And you got to keep it, because that's part of what brings the sad, is that we can start to feel that, like, Leo doesn't want to talk about what's going on. And it's part of what, like, Leo's just like trying to push through it, but he's got his little mentee here running around because he's happy he made a simulation shot, right? Like, so he's trying to balance these two, and his like talking around it and turning the conversation to Emil really makes that stand. So yeah, slide. And then down here again, I want more slowing, and I want to sit in it more. Punish your reader with sorrow. It's a terrible thing to say, but really make us feel it, right? Like, so Emil, I want you to remember that no matter what, I believe in you. Me, this is for me, because it took me 6 tries to pass your test, right? Like, Emil's confused. You said stars. No, I took that out because that's a little too informal for where Leo is right now, right? Like, Leo grasped his shoulder and shook it. Emil, you've done nothing wrong. This has nothing to do with you. Emil started to stare at Leo, noticing the haggard look on his face, the defeat in his eyes. He started fitting the clues together, piling up since Martinez's first words, and he felt his breath quicken. Dread filled his gut. No. And then you had tell me it's not true. And then you had Leo squeeze his shoulder. Let's live with the no for a minute. No. Give me a response. And it doesn't need to be verbal, right? You can take the responses you already have and like just break them up. So Dreadfield has got no, and I'll take this sentence from the front. Yeah. Leo squeezed his shoulder and dropped his hand. Tell me it's not true. He drew himself up to a position of attention and said in a formal tone, right? Like, just slow us down. And so we can like visualize and live in that moment for a minute. Yeah. And here I left you this note. This is just a side note. You're over explaining a little bit. When we get into the sorrow and we're feeling it, we don't like, we need you to hit us with the exchanges of the characters, their emotions, but we don't need you to explain their emotions, right? So you have Emil felt his knees buckle as if Leo conferred a great honor on him with the start of the utterance and destroyed his own world with the end, right? Like, I know this, I get it. Emil felt his knees buckle. That's all I need. He caught himself on the back of the chair and stared at Leo, stunned, right? Like, removing those words, that really well-written description, but pulling that out actually makes the Emil felt his knees buckle stronger, right? And then again here, I want you to slow it down because we're still in the middle of this very sad moment. So, but now Emil's turning to that like frustration and anger. So let's live with the frustration and anger now, right? We lived with the sadness. You took us to recognition. Now let's stay with the anger. No, this isn't right. And so you originally had this all in one paragraph. No, this isn't right. You led a humanitarian mission went wrong. The dishonor lies complete with the Imperials and the unnatural mind and their unnatural mind controlling abilities. Why are you punishing yourself for that? But if I slow it down, no, this isn't right. Leo goes and picks up the tray, right? You led a humanitarian mission that dishonored the lives of the Imperials. Leo walks toward the auditorium, right? Why are you putting yourself through this? Why are you doing this, right? Now Leo can turn and give an explanation, right? But that like slowing down, taking what you wrote and just breaking it up so that we get more exchanges, so that we can spend more time in this emotion, exaggerates what's going on, and makes the moment stick in the reader's mind. And so you took an interesting turn here at the end.
Yeah, I saw your comment. I agree.
Okay. I didn't know if you wanted to defend it.
No.
I was gonna let you defend it. Okay. So because Leo is very stoic.
Yeah.
And like fulfilling his duty. And then he flashes anger here at Emil. It's not bad, right? Like it's not a weird turn. It's just, you got to set that kind of flash of anger up before we get to the last paragraph. Right, like, so if he's gonna flash anger, he needs to flash anger at the beginning, so we know that that's part of his character, so that in the big climax we don't see it. And so you have this great exchange between them. What does it matter? Within the hour, you'll be severed from the guardians, and you'll walk away from the guild, away from me, no better than my father. Hurt flashed in Leo's face before he smothered it into a cold mask. Honor matters, Emil. Always act with honor. So I hope you bring that back through all of the books. That's such a great line, right? Like this exchange right here lands the characters. I'm like, yeah, now I want to go on the journey of Emil. And now I can see Emil as an antagonist. This is the moment, right? Where we crush Emil's soul. And that like cocky confidence where he's talking to his gun, that feels like Sven talking to his reindeer, now becomes oh crap, I can't remember his name. Walking Dead villain talking to his Batley seal, right? Like it's that turn. Emil, so there is one thing I would love to see here, which is I want to see Leo open the door and walk into the auditorium.
Okay.
Because I want to see Leo make the commitment to walk through with it. Right, you've got him walking out of his office with the dagger. Take us to the door. What, and have Emil refuse to come in, right? And he doesn't even need to say, like, you don't even need to add anything here to Emil. Like, honor matters to me. I'll always act with honor. Leo reached out for the door, pulled it open, and Emil watched as he strode down the aisle. Emil turned his back and called over his shoulder as he stalked away. Says the man who's leaving us to fend for ourselves. Right? Like, just that really stick that landing with Leo actually like going to get his top knot cut and not kill himself like Jeff.
Not kill himself, yes.
Yeah. So all that to say, it's a really strong ending. I think your opening has a ton of potential. The new opening I read a couple minutes ago, I really like. It's really fun. You've done a great job with it.
Thank you.
How are you feeling about it?
I feel good about it. Yeah, I
Good.
feel good. I feel like it's much better.
Yeah, and when I said 4,000 words, yeah, I think you can, if you slow it down. Maybe 3,000. You might add 1,000 words, but if you slow it down, especially the Martinez stuff, adding Leo talking to his rifle at the beginning is going to slow the beginning down. You're probably going to get to like 3,000 words with this one, which is enough to keep it in one place. If you wanted to break it into two, I could see you using. I would keep the two pieces together though. You could use them as flashbacks in a novel. But you got to use both of them. You can't use one and then the other. You have to show him exceeding at the rifle shot and then the conversation with Leo. They work so well together because the emotional tone changes so much. I don't know that I'd break them up, but I could totally see this as like a standout piece in a novel. It's like a flashback to why is Emil hate honor and a villain, and Leo is, regretful of what happened. Yeah. So yeah, really great work.
Thank you.
And before I stop sharing, anything else you want to talk about?
No, I don't think so.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Yeah. Okay. Where can people, sorry, I forgot to ask this up front. Where can people find you? Are you online?
I am
Do you want them
online.
following your work?
I have a blog, well, not for writing. I have a blog for medical speech pathologists called
Nice.
Eat, Speak, and Think. So it's
Awesome.
eatspeakthink.com. And I
Okay.
try to make it accessible to anybody who has any questions about, swallowing problems or communication or memory and thinking problems.
That's amazing. Okay. So go check that out. All right. I'm going to stop the recording and we
Okay,
can chat
thanks.
a little bit more.